You got to plug those bad boys back in, haven't you?
Well, so I didn't risk unplugging and plugging them back in because Windows. I hate modern technology so much, Chris. Because modern headphones, you just plug it in and you think it would work, but no. Every app has its own individual settings for where it's getting its sound from and sending its sound to. So I'll plug in headphones and then open up my editing software. And I've done this recently in a public fucking library. And then open up my editing software, headphones on, headphones plugged in, hit play, and it's been, hello and welcome to, and it's fully loud. Like, it's just everyone can hear the start of whatever podcast I'm editing. And I was furious. So, no, I didn't unplug the headphones and plug them back in, Chris, because I don't trust it. I went into the settings of the app we're talking on, and I changed it. And then I changed it back.
Fair enough.
And if you haven't figured it out, I'm bitter about it.
Yeah, and I'm, bitter on a level where I can only assume you got banned from the library.
I didn't get banned from the library, but I've got a real etiquette thing. Like, I really, really want to adhere. Like, because what are we if all of the etiquette goes out the window, right? If everyone just gets on a bus and plays their TikToks at full volume, it's chaos. Right, I want no one to do it, and I when one guy does, I want everyone to look round at that person and make them feel self-conscious till they put their phone away. So when I'm the cause of the problem, even by accident, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, there is an argument that those people are the worst.
Yes. Oh yeah, they are the worst human beings, and because it's right. So it's there's levels of it, and I think the very worst level. Like, playing shitty music is pretty bad, right? Bringing a giant speaker onto public transport and playing shitty music, that's, like, even worse, because you've actively chosen to bring a giant speaker. But even worse than that, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but it is someone playing a mobile game or looking at their TikTok out loud on a bus or a train, because I don't know if you've ever listened to someone's TikTok as they're flicking through it, but it's like half a sentence and then it's gone because they bored that one. They're moving on. And that is so much more irritating and so much harder to tune out when it's flashes of stuff, like someone channel surfing in a movie in the 90s. It drives me insane.
And when you hear it just sounds worse. Like, if it's you doing it, it's not as bad. But when you hear it, it just sounds infuriating.
Yeah. I had a friend, and he was, look, and I put this politely, he was built like a brick shithouse. He was a huge guy, beard, looked terrifying. He was actually a teddy bear, but he looked intimidating. He got away with buying like 10 packs of headphones, like cheap plug-in headphones, like £3 a piece headphones, and if anyone did it on the bus, he'd just walk over to them and just slowly hand them the headphones, which they would absolutely take, and then he'd go back to his seat.
That's phenomenal. That's brilliant.
Yeah, if I had his physical presence, I would absolutely do that.
Wow,
he was a hero.
Cool that he got away with it.
Yeah, hero to many. Hero to many.
Wow. How are you, Dan? Well, I feel like we have started. This is probably included. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I knew it was going to be included when you didn't name the app we're using. I was like, oh, this is going in.
Yeah, you know what, though? Sometimes I think once I hit record, even when we're just having a chat, I'm still podcast mode.
All right, you're still.
I'm just like I'm just protecting myself. This might not go in. This might not be interesting enough. But I'm just protecting myself.
No, I think your story about the mate that did a service to the world with the headphone buying should go in.
And if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, I was listening to my TikTok out loud a few months ago, and a guy did just approach me and slowly hand me a pair of cheap headphones. Now you know.
Now you know what happened.
Anyway, roll the titles, I think. Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar, a podcast where I'm going to sit here and pretend like we weren't just talking in case I don't include the pre-bit, which probably means I've now committed to including the pre-bit, or I don't, just for fun. Everyone's like, what was the bit they did before he started recording? Mystery. Ooh.
I like the pre-bit. I think we've done a lot worse when it comes to pre-bits.
Yeah, that's true. Or maybe we have it as a reason for them to keep listening, and instead of putting it before the titles, I put it at the end. And now they've got to listen.
No, it's not worth that.
Fine. No, it wasn't that good? Okay, that's fine. Not good enough to do that with.
Wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough to be an end bit. God.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, we have standards for the end bits. We don't. Anyway, we are here to talk about Korra Alone, the second episode of the fourth book, Balance. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, Chris. I watched this with Nadia, and the disappointment was immeasurable when she saw the title of this episode. Korra is Nadia's least favourite part of the show, by quite some way.
Oh, right. Wait, hold on. Did you just say the balance? It's cool. I just need to double check that it's Korra. It's called Korra Alone, isn't it?
Yeah, from book 4, Balance.
Oh, from book 4, Balance. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, Nadia saw Korra Alone as the title, and was like, "Oh no." Because it's not her favorite character, which we talked about last week. How Korra is maybe not the most engaging character in the show, and we talked about that debate of like, you know, it's a lot of people are very big fans. I would like to actually add to that very quickly, just very very quickly. I actually think it comes down more to like, if a situation arises in this show and Aang is the protagonist, I feel like I know Aang well enough to have a good guess as how Aang responds to that situation before it unfolds. I don't feel that is true of Korra. And that might be because Korra has always been bent to the wills of the season and the storyline going on around her. You know, Korra's behavior is sometimes felt forced into whatever makes the story that's currently happening work best, rather than actually what fits her character best. And I'll be honest, though, that is mostly true of seasons 1 and 2, and that hasn't really been true of season 3 and 4. And we'll talk about Korra a lot this week, as people will guess. But I just wanted to clarify that, because I talked a lot about, like, dialogue when we talked about that, and I sort of said, like, you know, all these characters have really distinct ways of speaking, and characters that really pop off the page and are clear in writing, whereas Korra is a little sort of, like, more reserved, and it's harder to pinpoint. Like, I couldn't pick out a line of dialogue and say, that's Korra. And that is part of it, but I do also think it's about like her choices and reactions to situations not being so like, oh, that's clearly a Korra choice. That's exactly what Korra would do in that situation, because a character isn't quite defined enough. And I think, whereas even other characters in this show, like Mako or Bolin, I feel like I know how they would react. Anyway, that aside, for those who don't remember, this is the episode where Korra goes on a spirit journey that leads her to Toph. My favourite thing,
which I imagine you were very, very excited about.
I cannot, even rewatching it, and I knew it was coming. I was like tapping Nadia, like, oh, this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Because I'm a child. So yeah, that's the. There's not much to do in the covering the sort of like recapping the story. This is the episode where we fill in the gap of where Korra has been for the last sort of year or so, and then it leads to her to a very depressed place. She ends up meeting up with Toph. We'll talk about more of the character stuff at the beginning. But this is a very much character-driven episode, not so much a plot-driven episode. So doing a recap feels a bit redundant. So let's just go and start with overall thoughts, Chris. I'm very curious how you felt about this one, because this, you may be or not be surprised to hear, is a very popular episode of the show. This one won multiple awards. It's very much lauded as a top tier episode of Korra. How did you feel having watched it sort of removed from the original run?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. I thought the animation within it was good. I thought the speeding through 2 years worked well. I thought I didn't feel like anything was not detailed enough. I thought they actually, 2 years in 22 minutes, they had to do an awful lot with that, but I thought they balanced, excuse the pun. If that is a pun, is that a pun? No, it's
Yeah,
probably not a pun, is it? But,
yeah,
I thought they balanced the name of the book it well.
He did it. He said the thing, everyone. He said the thing.
Thank you very much. I thought they delved into the Legend of Korra very nicely.
He did it again.
Yeah, I did. And if I were to, be sitting here analysing Avatar, I think you're not going to give me that? You're not going to be like, oh, you did it again?
I'll be honest with you, did I miss one? Did my brain switch off and I missed one? I feel bad if I did.
It's the name of our podcast, Dan. Analysing Avatar. It's literally what we're doing right now.
You know what? I was genuinely just looking out for more Avatar and Korra ones. Yeah, I heard you say it, and I think I even went, oh yeah, that's the name of the podcast. I didn't think of it in the context of what we did. Do you want to say it again? I'll give you the reaction I deserved. Yeah.
And if I was to sit here, analysing Avatar.
He did it! He named the thing! That's the name of this show.
Yes. Drop the mic. I'd say I enjoyed it. I think it was exciting to see Toph. I'm looking forward to how they handle Toph because I feel that they're not going to go, what's going on with you and your daughters, Toph? Which I think is, what the story I'm interested in. The story I would want them to do. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I would hope they would. But it was a great reveal. I'm kind of intrigued and not as intrigued about sort of the ghost of the Avatar that's following her around. It's fine, but I could take or leave that. I'm not necessarily hooked on the mystery of who or what that is. I guess I just assume some kind of manifestation of how she's feeling or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I think
I really enjoyed it. Like I'm not surprised to hear it's popular because I think Nadia's hatred of Korra is not necessarily reflective of everyone's. I am. Probably,
it's worth noting. The reason we talked about this last week is I got pushback when I said Korra's the least interesting character in her own show.
Yeah.
So clearly a lot of people love Korra, and it's worth clarifying. And this should go with anything we say ever. We're idiots. Our opinions.
Yeah. And also, obviously, you don't talk in often as with the entire world. It's actually, Dan, as I think one of my biggest bugbears with current society. And the world is that there's no room for nuance. Nadia doesn't actually hate Korra. Like that's an exaggeration for comic effect. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She's not her favorite character. So when she saw there was an episode that would likely not include the characters she does like, because she loves like Bolin and like Varric and like some of the funnier characters. She always leans into the funnier characters of the show, which is why I think she's so fond of Avatar, because that was a very large cast of comedic characters, Aang, Sokka, Toph, all very regularly funny. Even Zuko in the final season got some of the best jokes. So, Nadia likes when the show is mixing in comedy with that stuff. So Korra has been and for good reasons, a serious character. I think it's more to do with that than it is anything else, for clarification.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm surprised to hear it's won awards, although it is very beautiful. And I suppose, like I say, the writing's very strong. To go through 2 years and not feel rushed is quite nice. I like that she wrote to Asami, obviously. #Justice for Asami. I enjoyed that she felt she, could open up to her a bit more than the others. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. What about you?
Yeah, really. I just was checking what awards, because I said that and now I'm verifying. So it won the People's Choice Award for Best Television Episode.
Come on. We've all won a People's Choice Award for Best Television Episode. I mean...
Oh, wait, actually, do I need to backtrack this? Wait, let me just read this full sentence and see if I've been tricked by this phrasing. That's hilarious if this is true. It also won the People's Choice winner for Best Television Episode in IGN's Best of 2014. I think I've been had.
Well, I mean, no, it won an award. Very
but
much.
That's not a People's Choice Award. That's even lower than a People's
No.
Choice Award, I would argue, in terms of like prestige.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
It's worth adding, though, this is Janet Varney, the voice of Korra's favourite episode, and it was one of Michael DiMartino's favourite episodes to write. So this episode is very popular. So yeah, there you go.
Deservedly so, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I also really liked this episode. I liked it for two. There were two things that really stand out to me about this episode. Three things actually. I think that I really that make me stick with this. Not including Toph, because I love Toph, but as you very eloquently and simply put it, that's a let them cook situation. Yes, I'm happy Toph is here. What do they then do with that is whether it dictates if that's a good or bad thing, right? We'll see. Excited, yes, but that's a tease for a thing we've not yet completed or dealt with. So we're putting a pin in that for now. But in terms of what this episode does, I really like three very strong things about it. One, I like that it does feel like a unique individual episode of the show. For a show that generally a lot of the episodes bleed into each other because it's serialized, this is very distinct, very of itself, doesn't just simply feel like the next piece in the ongoing story, but actually feels like a really interesting story with a beginning, middle, and end of its own. I like that about it. I like the non-linear structure. The episode tells its story somewhat out of order, and I really respect the choice to not spoon feed us text on the screen like 3 years ago or whatever. I didn't need that, and I'm glad they didn't do that. And in the trivia indicated afterwards, when I looked into it, that Nickelodeon had apparently wanted that, and the creators fought to just trust that the audience would follow it, and they were right. They were so right. But I really like the non-linear structure of the episode as well. And then the third and final thing that really stands out to me in this, I think this episode does do an awful lot for Korra as a character. I think when you take a character who grew up attached, with their identity completely attached to this thing, the Avatar, TM, the idea that if you grew up from the youngest, because she's not like Aang. Aang and most avatars find out when they're in their early teens, like 13, 14, that they're the Avatar, and they get to have a normal childhood. Korra figured out she was the Avatar at like 4 or something. I'm the Avatar, deal with it. So she's grown up with this role being so associated with her identity and never really got to figure out who she is. And I think what's really interesting is what they've done here is they've taken a person so attached to that identity, they've taken that away from them. She's no longer capable physically of fighting. Yes, technically she can still bend all the elements, but she can't go into the Avatar state. She's clearly not as strong as she was. She's not particularly, got that skill for bending anymore. Like, she's getting beat pretty handily by just like random thugs and stuff. And she's no longer needed in the world. Now, Tenzin and the other guys can't see that they're doing this, but every time they say, no, don't worry about it, Korra, the world's fine, we've got it, we're handling it, they're reinforcing this idea she doesn't matter. And all of this is following on from last season when Korra was forced to reckon with the choice of what's more valuable, the Avatar or the Air Nation. She made that choice last year. She chose to give herself up to save the Air Nation. She accepted, maybe for the first time in her life, that the Avatar isn't the most important thing on the face of this earth. And this is now her reckoning with that decision and what it means. And I think this episode's exploration of that, while very subtextual, I don't think she doesn't outright say this is how she's feeling, but the episode does plenty to reinforce these ideas. I think, actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and say it's text, not subtext. I think it's pretty clear. Even though she never outright spells it out in the terms I just have, it's clearly what's happening in this episode. And I think that And I think that's just really damn interesting. I'm fascinated by this story for her because it's exactly the thing. And take a shot. It's a Harry Potter reference. It's exactly the thing Dumbledore was trying to prevent Harry from becoming by having him grow up till, his early teens, 11, 12, whatever, he's not quite his teens, but you know what I mean, his early youth, to normally, or as normally as possible. Korra didn't have that protection. No one was looking out for Korra in that way. Well, they couldn't. She figured it out. She knew she was the Avatar. And this is the damage that's done. I think that's really interesting. And this episode exploring that, I thought was really, really good. So I think it's an interesting structure. I think the Korra character exploration's really top tier. And I liked that it felt like a complete story in a way that Korra episodes don't usually. So yeah, I'm a big fan. How did you feel about the sort of more personal Korra stuff? Did this do a lot for you, or did this move the needle on your feelings on Korra as a character?
Well, my feelings on Korra as a character are always fairly consistent. I like the character. Yes, Marco, Bolin, Asami, I probably prefer all of them. But equally not in a, that's if I'm asked to rank Korra characters, not something I think about actively. Do you know what I mean? Which isn't a criticism if anyone does. There are shows where I'd be maybe more inclined to think that way. I could give my Doctor Who companion rankings fairly quickly. Donna at the top. You know what? I think Ruby Sunday's really actually up there, like top 3. Actually, I would say. I really like Bill.
Check out the YouTube channel if you want to hear us talking about the new seasons of Doctor Who. But by the time you hear this, we'll have covered it.
Yes, yeah, that'll be up. So that's not me criticizing, but I don't think in those terms with this show. So in terms of sort of my feelings about Korra, it's not necessarily done anything for that, but that doesn't mean I don't see and it didn't enjoy all the things you're talking about, particularly the letters and them accidentally not realizing the impact of their words, but the audience understanding the impact of the words. Oh, don't worry, we don't need you, and all of that sort of stuff. And excuse me, apologies, quite early for me. Just the things like the tragedy of her leaving home and then writing letters saying, "Oh, it's amazing to see everyone," and that she isn't actually seeing everyone. Yeah, is really strong, and I think also I think they also did a really good job. Whilst Korra is not arguably, but whilst at the end of the last episode, we see Korra, I don't know if we see her outright lose the fight, but at least the fight that she's in, be challenging. It's still quite kick-ass. It's still, Korra's off, underground fighting. I think what this episode did really well was not betray the kind of the interesting emotional state they ended the character in at the end of last season. You kind of watch this and go, oh no, she's not distracting herself with underground fighting. She's in a real bad way, bless her. And I think they're exploring that well here. And I think they're exploring themes around worth, anxiety, mental health really, really well here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really interesting, the coincidence that, we made that joke last year about Korra being the least interesting character in the show. And it really feels like, even though it's impossible for this to be true, it feels like the show is actively trying to challenge us on that front. Because, with between the ending of last season and the stuff they're doing with her now, this is the most interesting she's been by quite some way. I'm certainly, and it's you know what it is. It's also the most consistent they've characterized her. I still feel like in the first 2 seasons they didn't really know who she was and didn't really have a good, clean plan for a character arc for her. And you can kind of fansplain one about, we talked about this a lot, and we even pitched it as this is what we feel is happening. About her growing into herself in a way where she's sort of she's getting ahead of herself and wants to be this sort of complete Avatar before she's there. And we talked about how she's almost deliberately written as annoying to sort of show that progression to when she becomes a more mature human being at a later date. And by annoying, I'm talking about when she was being like sort of quite bratty with Tenzin in the early seasons. But I think it's really interesting how good these guys are at characterizing people, generally speaking. As I mean, even in the letters this week, I cannot tell you how much I laughed at hearing the letters from her friends that she got sent back to back, like Bolin's hilarious letter combined with the drawing. Oh my god, that's so Bolin and so very funny. And then like, you know, Mako's one where he's like, I don't really know what to put in a letter. The weather's good. Anyway, enough joking around. Like, it's so good. That's so perfectly Mako. Like, they really understand the supporting cast in this show. And it is a shame that quality of writing hasn't always reached Korra. It's starting to, like I said, last season and this season, and there's work to be done. But I think I'm really impressed with how they're writing that ship. And again, it almost feels like a response. But I've got to assume, truthfully, that commentators at the time were, you know, in seasons 1 and 2, and maybe even throughout parts of 3, were having the grievance that not grievance. It sounds like it's a more serious thing, but having raising that sort of mild concern that Korra maybe isn't exactly the most interesting character in her own show. And I think it's really interesting that we had that question last week, and this episode is almost a counter to that. Like, immediately. Like, I can't remember the last time we had a listener feedback question that played so heavily into my thoughts on the very next episode. But it really did. It was a big part of my thinking as I watched this. But yeah, those letters were great, weren't they? Like, I genuinely, and I knew you would love, as I did, Justice for Asami, that the only person Korra felt comfortable writing back was Asami. I think that says a lot, and that's great characterization again.
Yeah, completely, and also just a really sweet moment. And I hope they explore their relationship more. You know, it'd be great to see that reflected in maybe Asami's the one that finds her, or something like that, or maybe she's, you know, in a Yoda style cave with Toph for a bit.
I thought that. I said to Nadia, I literally turned to Nadia and was like, Toph's Yoda now. I did the same thing.
It felt very Yoda, didn't it?
Yeah, I thought I was being weird and just connecting dots that weren't there because I'm ADHD and I have pattern recognition problems. Not problems. I have pattern recognition. The problem is I do it at things where I don't need pattern recognition. But I was looking at the iconography and the way they shot it and the way it was done. I was like, she's Yoda now.
Yeah, no, it absolutely felt very Yoda. I felt exactly the same for sure. Yeah.
That's funny.
How did you feel when you, if you can remember, how did you feel when you watched it for the first time? Because I definitely had a moment of, oh, we're going right back to you know, literally where we left off last year. Were you surprised by that sort of flashback technique or anything like that?
I was a little. I had a feeling we were just gonna get like. They weren't really going to like directly address how she ended up where she was, but just we were going to jump in with her cage fighting and there'd be references to how she got there, you know, and what her mental state was. I think obviously for building a character and a story, what they did here, way better. So I was a little surprised, but pleasantly so, I think. I think the story really benefits from showing us the truncated version of her journey. And I think it's a really clever way to explore the circumstances that got her there in a way that made it actually, I think, make more sense by quite some way. And when I say more sense, I don't mean physically, because anyone can understand how she wasn't happy, she ran away, she got in a cage fight for a bit of money or whatever. Like, fine. But from a character perspective, this made so much more sense out of that decision by showing us how she got there than it could have ever done telling her story. If this had just been an episode about her leaving the cage fighting place and ending up in the swamp finding Toph and hadn't had the intercut flashbacks of how she got to cage fighting, I think it would have really suffered. I feel like it would have really suffered because all the most interesting stuff is how she got there. You know, the journey is the interesting part. So yeah, it was a pretty great way to do it because when you think about it, if 2 years of storytelling like crammed into one episode in a way that didn't feel rushed is pretty spectacular. So yeah, I was very pleased. Definitely surprised though when I first watched it. My feelings watching this the first time were surprise, interest, and engagement with what Korra was going through, then giddy excitement because Toph showed up. Just absolute just joy. I was so happy. For those who haven't followed this podcast the whole way through, Toph is my favorite character from the original series, and obviously conspicuous by only her absence in the previous seasons, the idea that we were going to deal with her at all, which I think you predicted last year. You called it? You were like, I think Toph's showing up.
Yeah, my feeling was, they've got her daughter. They've made storylines out of the relationship between her and her children. So it just made sense to show her. And apologies for the yawn again. In the context of.
I just want to quickly jump in for listeners. Chris, it's 6:30 in the morning for Chris. I just want to add to genuinely, the man's a champion for getting up this early to record to squeeze this in today. So I just want to give some credit and some props to Chris for being this alert at this time.
It's annoying because I'm not yawning when you're talking. It's only when I'm do you know what I mean? I know I've only done it twice, but I would prefer to yawn when you're talking so that it doesn't disrupt anything and sound really rude. And that's not happened. That's annoying.
No.
The way in which they've introduced her, though, is this Yoda-like form. That's why I said earlier, I hope we get that story. I'm not 100% sure we will because, she seems happy Yodering. I can't see her going back to Republic. It would be a surprise if she's like, right, I'm gonna go to Republic City with you, Toph, and solve my relationship with my daughters.
Yeah,
that feels unlikely.
Well, yeah, I mean, I won't speak on that because I don't want to give away either way. I will say as a Toph fan, I was satisfied with the amount of Toph I got.
Okay.
Obviously, that to be fair though, any amount of Toph is a good amount of Toph. And it also feels like they didn't miss a beat on writing her as well. Nice to see you again, Twinkle Toes. Oh, that is because it's the manners that young Toph probably wouldn't have had. Young Toph was never saying nice to see you again. But adding Twinkle Toes, that little smile, that little grin, I was like, oh, it's so perfectly mature Toph. What a brilliant way to age that character up and still make that character that character. Young Toph from the show would never have said nice to see you.
That's this whole episode. I don't know who wrote it and if it was anyone sort of senior or anything like that, but whoever wrote this has such a clear grasp on all the characters. Like you said earlier, even down to the letters and stuff from each individual, the way Korra is handled, whoever wrote this really understands these characters for sure.
Yeah, one of the co-creators wrote this episode, so yeah, you're bang on.
Yeah.
Michael Dante DiMartino wrote this episode, and he is one of the co-creators of the series, and yeah, did a great job. What I think is really cool as well about the Toph thing is it counteracts the start of this episode. Again, something we got through the brilliant use of flashbacks is the Katara stuff. So, for those who don't remember, this episode opens, or not opens, but once Korra, we're flashing back to how Korra got here. The first thing she did following the previous season was head back to the South Pole to try and get herself well again. We saw her at the end of last season looking sad and in the wheelchair. And Katara has this brilliant moment where she basically says, I can guide your healing process, but getting better, that's up to you. Because Katara sort of hints without saying, Korra's issues are psychological. Or at least heavily psychological. Maybe there is still physical damage because she was poisoned last season pretty badly. But a lot of her lack of connection to Rava, Oh, which, by the way, I don't think I'm ever... So Rava, for those who don't remember, is the spirit that binded with Wan in the original thing to make the Avatar. It's the spirit that, makes the Avatar cycle happen and is joined with Korra and all previous Avatars. Nadia said to me something last night that's ruined Rava as a character for me forever, which is she used the phrase Fiat Rava. She thinks the name Rava sounds like the name of a shit car, and now I can't hear the name Rava without hearing Fiat Rava and seeing like a shit advert for a car where it like pulls up alongside a mountain in like a picturesque, like I genuinely, you know how earlier you said Nadia doesn't actually hate Korra, she's just for a comic effect. No, I actually hate Nadia now.
I mean, Korra's not too far from a car name, is it?
The new Nissan Korra. Yeah, no, you're right.
That's a
good point.
So, there's a lot of car names in this show.
That's funny. Sorry, yeah, so back to the point. So I liked the contrast of Katara trying to help with her wisdom, but it not being the right teachings at the right time, and then the idea that the episode ends up leading Korra to Toph. It's like, the gang that grew up around Aang, the last Avatar, all have a lot of different perspectives to give and helped make him a complete Avatar. So Katara couldn't quite get Korra over the line. Maybe Toph will. Maybe she needed a bit of Toph's toughness. And maybe that's what we'll get next week. But I really like that contrast. I love seeing Katara attempting to help and being very wise and probably on the money in terms of what the issue is. But not being able to get through to Korra. And now Korra's been sort of on a journey that's led her to Toph, who, if Korra isn't going to take gentle and, wisdom issued sort of in the way that Katara has been issuing it, Toph's just going to beat it into her, I'm pretty sure. If the next episode opened with just Toph hitting Korra around the head with a big rock and being like, grow up, I'd be like, yeah, that's about right. Figure it out, Twinkle Toes. Get over yourself.
Do you think Korra's gonna? How were you feeling about the? I suppose you don't really want to answer too much, but were you predicting Korra would sort of bring up her daughters and talk to her about that?
Yeah, I feel like they made them such a central part of the previous story. I felt confident-ish they were going to handle it in some way, shape, or form, whether that be a conversation or, maybe Korra does her training. I think, if memory serves, my prediction, because I remember, did this air with other episodes? It must have done, right? I don't know. I don't know if I ever actually stopped and thought about it too much, but I think my prediction would have been she'll do a little training with Korra here. It might come up, some sort of, Yodering, like when Luke was on Dagobah. Korra leaves having figured herself out a bit, and then maybe at the end of the series we do something to show maybe Toph reconnected. Maybe they get a letter or something, something to indicate Toph reached out to the girls, at the very least. I think that was kind of where my headspace was at, but because I just feel like as you've pointed out, I think it would be a misstep to not handle that. It was such a big part of last season.
Yeah, it feels that. That doesn't. I think they should basically, and I think it would be weird not to. Mm-hmm. What the show often does this thing where it will. This show, excuse the pun again, has struggled maybe in the past to balance stories. We now have, we now have her in one place, the others in another. Are you worried about that?
I think in a season 2 world, yes. But season 3 was so good. And the cast was split across a lot of that. And so far, we've had 2 pretty good episodes of them being separated here. and I would argue this Korra one benefited from the absence of the others, because we really got to drill down into Korra without feeling the need to like give her a plot while she was having her character arc.
Absolutely.
There's a lot going on in the wider world, and I feel like Korra would need to be. You'd have a hard time explaining why Korra isn't directly involved with righting the wrongs in the Earth Kingdom. If she was physically present, so you kind of have to have her separated to be going on this sort of journey of figuring out who she is. So yeah, I think I trust the writers at this stage. They've re-earned my trust enough with season 3 that's not a concern. I think that's basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I feel the same for sure.
Yeah, how did you feel about the journey itself? Had a lot of like moments of like, you know, her seeing sort of trippy imagery, the ghostly version of herself, you know, the dog that sort of she was clearly able to communicate with, that turned out to be a spirit. You know, and even the moment where she actually visited the tree where she'd connected with herself and her avatar at the end of season 2, the magic tree of time. So, you know, that's where she reconnected with Rava in season 2. Did you think it made sense she went back there? How did you feel about that stuff in the sort of middle of the episode?
I enjoyed Spirit Dog. I thought the Spirit Dog in spirit form and dog form were both very cute. I enjoyed that, partly because, you know my rule, Dan, if any animal looks vaguely close to a teddy bear, I'm probably, you know, gonna connect with and like that animal more than most. So I would say that. I would say I enjoyed her returning to the spirit world, especially as we've not been to the spirit world, you know, recently.
Just a little quick diversion, very quickly. If you were picking a dog, you'd like, if you had to have a dog, you're picking one of those sort of small, fluffy ones with the curly hair that look a bit like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
That's like top tier dog for you. I know you're not a dog guy, but if you had to pick a dog, that's the one you're immediately going for.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
There you go. You learn something new every day.
But I imagine that's new, but not surprising.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I'm a big fan of teddy bears.
Like a small sort of yappy dog with brown fur, probably a bit curly. Yeah, I can see it. I can picture this dog in my head.
Yeah, but it's difficult because, you know, if you're going dog criteria, you also need to add that fur is not going to come off easily. It's not going to stink, and ideally, you know, would train itself to shit in the toilet and flush. And you know, all of these those latter three make it difficult. You know, don't buy me a dog for my next present, I guess is what I'm saying. It looks like a teddy bear. I'm like, there are other challenges here.
There's a subtle extra layer to that I really love, which is not just that it would need to be trained to use the toilet. It would have to train itself. Like, you don't even want to have to put in the effort to train it. Like, if I said to you, you can have a dog that is all those things, and it's even smart enough to be taught to use the toilet, you've just got to do the initial teaching. You're still like, nah. It's got to train itself.
No. I'd put in the time to teach it.
Okay. So if I found you a dog that met all those criteria, you'd be up for it. Is that correct?
Is it flushing it itself?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be trained. It's a smart dog. It's a super smart dog.
Yeah, I think so. Because I know, and by the way, I don't, you know, this is about me having an animal as opposed to, you know, I like animals. There are dogs. There have been dogs in my lifetime that I really like. I got on very well with Walt as well, Dan's cat, in the UK. Had a lot of time for Walt, and would never be, you know, I think people hear me talk about animals and assume that I won't touch them or let them sit on me or whatever, and that's not true. I'm happy with that. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, Walt would occasionally get into your lap, and Walt was very picky, it might be said.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I think it should definitely be said. Yeah. Walt
was very picky, and Walt was quite comfortable getting in your lap and having a little pet. And then he was. Well, I think the reason you and Walt got on is he likes a bit of attention and then wants to go away, and you are happy to give a cat a bit of attention and then would like it to go away. I think Is that
Yeah,
fair?
Jess is
you were both you both had the same amount of what you wanted out of each other. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Jess has a long-standing theory that animals like apathy.
They
That
do.
animals like someone who's not going to be all over them and not
100%.
desperate to hug them and all that sort of stuff.
I think the only animal that doesn't count for is the dog. Every other animal on the face of this earth is quite happy for you to just give it a little bit of attention if it wants it, and then it wants to go away.
My cousin's little girl, who's I think a year and a half, maybe 18 months. She's taken. It's Jess and I. It's our favorite thing in the world at the moment. She's taken to just like when she's when they're round someone's house with her. When she's done, bearing in mind she can't overly talk yet. When she's done, she'll just go and get everyone's shoes and put them in front of them. As if to be like,
amazing.
We're going now. Like, we're done. It's fantastic.
That's good.
Yeah. So what was I saying? So I'd put in the effort. Like how long's the training? Like couple of months.
Let's say a couple
train
months.
the dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start googling this. See if I can get you one of these magic smart dogs.
No, I don't.
I'm kidding.
I don't, because it's too much pressure. The genuine fear, Maybe that's the 6:30 in the morning talking. The genuine. Every listeners are going. He's obviously not going to fucking buy you a dog from Australia, is he? Still.
I'm just looking up dogs on Amazon.co.uk. They can ship you one by tomorrow, mate. I've had to add the will flush the toilet feature. That has added a couple of $100 to the transaction, but I reckon that's worth it.
I don't, but no. Back to Korra. I like the dog. Thought it was cute. Trippy visuals are trippy visuals. You know what I'm like for dream sequences.
That's why I
and that
asked,
sort of
because
shit.
you've got for those who
Yeah.
don't know, the context of this question really is that Chris has a history of mixed feelings, I think, when shows do sort of things that aren't really happening to sort of indicate a character's emotional state or inner sort of thoughts. I think sometimes it works for Chris, sometimes it doesn't, and I think he's very particular about when it does and doesn't work for him. And I don't think we've ever really cracked the reasons, like in terms of like what the exact criteria are that put it into the plus column and the minus column, but sometimes it really rubs you up the wrong way.
Yeah, I struggle when shows do whole episodes of it, unless they're like really, they have to be fucking entertaining. I think for me to go, okay, well the merit in that was it was really entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of this, but they don't really, it's not the whole episode here, and I am intrigued as to what's going on with, Korra spirit, spirit Korra. I'm quite intrigued by that. Some of the other trippy visuals, I can take them, I can leave them, but I am intrigued by that storyline. It's not necessarily my favorite part of the episode, but I think it's an intriguing mystery.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I like the idea that she's kind of haunted by herself, because I think even regardless if that like specifically turns out to be anything, or is, as you pointed out at the beginning of the episode, the more likely, the more probable answer being that it is just a representation of Korra's inner battle. I still think it's a really cool idea, and it works well enough in this episode, and I think it leads to some really cool visuals and action stuff that I enjoyed. And the stakes of it are it's Korra battling for her soul, for her own mental well-being. It's that struggle represented in a physical fight, and I think that works really well. And I like that it's also, I really, really like that the image is specifically Korra season 1 outfit and look, Avatar state Korra. Like it's Korra as she pictured herself as the Avatar. That's how she sees her avatar, her as the Avatar. It's iconically, it's iconography of that she's sort of battling with. And I think, again, that really helps to really drive home what it is she's battling with. Korra, the actual human being, and Korra, this sort of trademarked like character. You know what I mean? Like this kind of like this public figure, Korra. You know, and I think that was really interesting. I also actually really liked this episode. Did a really good job of explaining why she's pretending not to be herself too, because in the previous episode we had that ending where the guy's like, you look at the Avatar, she's like, yeah, people say that all the time, no, I'm not her, and he's like, where did she go anyway? She's like, I wouldn't know, you know. I think the explanation for that here is so good. There's a really amazing scene where she goes to this village, little fishing village. She's buying some seafood, and then someone's like robbing something, and they're like, "You're the Avatar. Go deal with it." And obviously, she's in no fit state to deal with it. She can't be the Avatar right now. She goes over to get involved and just gets pushed over by these two thugs immediately, like basically humiliated. And the next thing that happens is this really awesome sort of symbolic cutting of the hair, changing of the clothes, and I think taking away the things that made her iconically the Avatar so that people wouldn't know she was the Avatar, so she could finally just be Korra and be herself while she susses out who she is. It was very good visually and symbolically, but also like what a great story beat, like just a really good explanation of why she's in hiding, so to speak, because she doesn't initially think to do that, and that makes a lot of sense. And so I enjoyed that sequence, really enjoyed that sequence.
Yeah, I thought it was really nicely done, and the animation throughout. If you think about the time frames and the different geographical areas that this episode covers, like everything looks really distinctive and beautifully set and animated.
Yeah, 100% agree. And also very quick detail. I loved that it's Goofy Aang doing something goofy in that picture, because in Korra we've only ever seen flashes of Aang as an adult in serious moments where he needed to be, you know, an adult and serious and, you know, like that. But I really love that we got a glimpse that Aang did continue to be goofy in his adult life. That picture of him that's on the wall at that like stand that sells sushi, where he's like, you know, using airbending to like swizz the sort of like the sushi or whatever it is around. Adorable. And also a little reference to the show, because I think in the original show he was like, you want to see my trick, and he makes two rocks spin around in that exact way. So it's a little reference to the show, but also like I love that they went that way. Very good. I pointed that out to Nadia and put it in my notes because I was so excited to see a goofy happy Aang.
Yeah, because I must admit, I was a bit like, is that... I was trying to work out whether that vendor, that guy, was someone we knew. I was like, oh, is that someone?
Yeah.
Is that an older version of the you know, the guy who was always getting his fruit destroyed or whatever? But I don't think it was, but yeah.
I thought it was maybe Shu. Do you remember Shu? So they went to a town, I can't remember which town, but there was a guy called Shu who kept insisting his brother was like running the other part of the other business in town, but it was also him just wearing a different hat. Do you remember that guy?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I think he was called Shu. I could be wrong. Oh no, Doc, Zhu, and then Bushi. Here we go. I found the guy. Doc, he's a Fire Nation. So Fire Nation. So, maybe though, because this might have been a Fire Nation colony, one of the old Earth Kingdom colonies. Where was this guy? Like fully in the Fire Nation. Where did he live? He was in the Painted Lady episode. So yeah, that was an Earth Kingdom place occupied by the Fire Nation. So actually, it could really have been that guy again, or a relative of his at least. But yeah, he was called Doc or Bushi or Shu, and he basically he wore a different hat and pretended to be different people, but it was always just him. He was a fun character. There's no reference here to him appearing any later though, so I guess that's not him. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah. No, looking at it, I don't see any. There's no official link between those characters, but that's who he reminded me of for sure.
Yeah, it was sort of played like we should know him, wasn't it? Like, I'm glad it wasn't just me that was like, should we know this fella? Like,
yeah, I thought that so. I thought that too, but yeah, no. Yeah, not seeing it. I did like as well, by the way. We haven't talked about this yet. Very quickly, how they tied Korra's arc to the wider world story, because of course Korra is feeling frustrated that she's not able to be the Avatar and things are, other people are dealing with it, and actually she expresses it as frustration with Kuvira. There's one point when she sort of implies she feels like she should be the one fixing the Earth Kingdom instead of Kuvira. And I thought that was really interesting because it sort of ties what is otherwise a pretty solo episode or a pretty isolated episode to the larger plot that we're setting up for the rest of the season as well. So it's not like the
it definitely
jumped away.
Yeah, it definitely feels, within the world that we've already seen in the last episode. Although, from the point of view of recording, we watched that last episode quite a while ago. So,
yeah, we had a bit of an unfortunate scheduling issue that meant there were 2.5, 3 weeks we couldn't record. So this is even though I keep saying last week, referring to last episode, that for us was nearly a month ago. It was a long time ago.
Well, I just mean I was happy. I was happy for the recap. I was like, oh, good. I've never been so grateful for the previously.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's funny actually because I said to Nadia before we sat down, I said, Nadia, we watched last one a little while ago. Do you want me to remind you what happened in it? And she's like, no, the man will tell me. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, these have a previously on, don't they? Because Nadia's got a little bad habit, but she's got a habit of if we're not watching the show day to day, she immediately forgets what happened in it. So we just had to watch a few days ago, the House of Dragon started again. The House of the Dragon, whatever it's called, and we went to sit down and watch the first episode, and I was like, we're gonna have to watch a recap video or something because there was no previously on, and I'm there are 5 characters called Aegon, so we need to figure out where we are again. So we found a 10-minute recap video on YouTube that sort of took us through the previous season.
Was it Man of Recaps? The guy who is in the corner of his videos and stuff.
Maybe. Good question.
I like that guy. He does good recaps.
Yeah. Let me have a look. House of the Dragon Series 1 Oh, nope. Series 1 recap. I'll tell you which one it was, because YouTube does that thing now where it tells you which one you watched. No, we watched something from a channel called Recap and Chill. But worked. It was good.
Yeah, I'm sure that's fine. Yeah. But as a recommendation, Man of Recaps is good. It's good stuff.
Has Man of Recaps done House of the Dragon season 1?
He has. 15 minutes.
Oh, it's a little longer as well. Probably even more detailed. Outrageous. Oh, here it is, House of the Dragon. Yeah, it's from a year ago, though. That's probably why it didn't show up. Yeah, you should have waited to release this now when people need it, because the second season's coming. But yeah, that's fair. I'm enjoying that show, by the way. Second season's been good so far. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. My notes. Let's see. Anything else that we haven't covered? No, I think we've... You know what? I think we might have covered everything. Oh,
in that case, Dan... I know you go.
Oh, just very quickly, I wrote down just the line, "You sure she's the Avatar?" Because I found that really funny. when that guy was questioning her, yeah. Oh, and I also wrote down the swamp spirit being very, very vague with the not what, who, as she got into the swamp. Although I think did you immediately know who it was going to be? Because I think even on my first watch I did.
Yeah, because there's not many people. Do you know what I mean? There's not many people in a way that it could be, and it was very earthy. She was fundamentally. She was being dragged into the ground. Do you know what I mean? It felt very tough.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, then it's time to do the thing, Chris.
Who's yelling? That's 7:30. Fuck it. Let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. 7:30 on a Friday. I think you should be up and awake by 7:30 on a Friday.
I think it probably still feels a bit too early, but equally, our neighbours keep just burning shit in their garden, and it just is irritating.
I really do hope they can hear every word of these podcasts.
Well, to be fair,
I half expected you to turn around and yell at the wall, and I hope you can hear that.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm probably being because they'd probably be mortified to hear me say that, and like they'd probably be very apologetic. And to be fair, they've never done it when like we've had washing hanging up outside or anything like that. But yeah, just keep coming home and being like, "Why does the house stink?" And then being like, "Oh, okay."
Fair enough. Anyway, we'll give you some trivia. So, Korra Alone was actually named after the Last Airbender episode Zuko Alone. So yeah, apparently there's also a graphic novel titled Suki Alone, and they all have a similar premise of sort of following the character on a sort of alone journey.
To sound like Captain America, I understood that reference. I was like, oh, like the other episode. I get it.
Good. Yeah, that's genuinely very rare. You remember the titles of episodes. I'll name an episode and I'll have to explain what it is. That's good. I'm impressed. We already talked about this, but just to cover it, the network was originally concerned that during Korra's flashbacks there were no text describing what point each time of the scene was taking place. Production crew trusted the audience would understand how the episode was structured, but they did then take extra care to make sure they were visually differentiating the different periods in time. One image being cooler, desaturated color palette for the sort of flashback, and then when she left Air Temple Island. So they did different things with both her outfit and hair, and obviously the color palette to sort of differentiate. That helps. Korra cutting her hair is sort of a slight reference, although I think this is a bit more of a tenuous one, to the scene from Book 2's first episode, The Avatar State, in which Zuko and Iroh cut the top knots off after they become fugitives of the Fire Nation. Weirdly, there's another little reference to that episode in this week's one. The catamaran that Korra rides resembles a boat that the original Team Avatar used to sail from the Northern Water Tribe to the fortress on the outside of the Earth Kingdom at the start of season 2 in the original series. So yeah, I mean it makes sense. Like I guess the idea there is more just like the Water Tribe use similar boats now to then. Like the design hasn't changed significantly, which it's only been 70, 80 years. I think that's fine. I think that's all right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Originally, the photo on the wall of avatars actually had Aang in a much more stoic manner, in line with how he'd been depicted in previous episodes of Legend of Korra. The production crew later changed this photo to be more lighthearted in nature, wanting to capture some of the same spirit Aang had in the original series. This is absolutely the correct move, and I'm very, very glad they did it. I note it every time I watch this episode, and I'm sad that there was even ever a time that they were going to put stoic Aang in.
It doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't. Not for like that. I mean, if it was a picture of Aang at an official event making a speech to rally to get the nations together in support of Republic City or something, yeah, absolutely, serious adult Aang. But Aang just going to pick up some sushi or whatever from this guy, yeah, I want Goofy Aang in that scenario, please. Yeah, 100%. Well, he took every opportunity
when
to be Goofy.
Yeah, and when the moment is being played as a gag as well, like it doesn't, it's a joke, the scene. So yeah,
yeah, agreed. Wasn't a joke to Korra, Chris. She's very upset. She's not very good as the Avatar anymore.
Well, all right, she's going through for a tough time, but crack a smile. Fucking hell.
I had to step away from the mic then.
You still there?
You are one step away from. Sorry, was I laughing so loud my mic cut off? Maybe.
Yeah. Your mic just cut completely then.
So I think this mic has like a built-in filter for if you go too loud. So I don't blow your ears out. I think I peaked so much, but I actually backed away from the microphone as well, so the listeners won't have heard me too loudly either. Oh, sorry, that was funny. So yeah, crack a smile. Yeah, she should smile more. That's what you're saying. That's really what you believe. That her life would be better if she just smiled more.
Being controversial for the sake of it, but I don't want anyone to think I'm making an inappropriate joke there about mental health or anything. But yeah.
Oh god. Well, that is that. I mean, you are running a psychiatric like a practice, and when anyone comes into you with any mental health issue, you just say smile more, and then let them, and then show them out the door. It's great because you don't have a waiting list.
No,
because that's very quick.
But what we do have is a series of scathing Google reviews.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
People are not happy. Luckily, I've been really cathartic. I've taken all those Google reviews, I've printed them off, I've given them to Next Door to burn, so it's all good. It does cut out completely. It's really disconcerting.
I'll have to look at that. I don't really know that. I don't know how to adjust for that. It's a new headset, and it makes sense.
No, I'm not saying you necessarily need to. But my ego's fragile, Dan. I need to hear the laughter.
Well, if it goes completely silent, I'm really laughing, and you'll hear it when you hear the episode, as if you listen back to these. Anyway, there's no way you listen back to these. I barely do, and I have to edit them.
I did the other day. I was trying to pitch Jetlag to someone, Jetlag the game, yes. And I did listen to our review to find the names of the 3 shows we said it was a combination of.
So it was Taskmaster. Oh, Taskmaster. Travel Man? Like it was a travel show. I've forgotten. What do you remember what they are?
So I knew 2. I knew Taskmaster and I knew Race Across the World. And then the third one that came up in the episode was Hunted.
Right. Yes. There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, back on. Stay on target. A little bit of a Star Wars reference for you there, Chris. I'd like to replace the Harry Potter references with Star Wars references, and then we can stop talking about Harry Potter forever. That'd be great.
Yeah, we can give that a whirl.
D. Bradley Baker is weirdly not credited for this episode, despite being several of the animals in this episode, including the barking dog, Pabu, and Naga. No idea why. It feels like an accident or an oversight. And I guess he's on very good terms with the creators, so I don't think it led to, arbitration or legal actions or anything like that. I think he just sort of went, oh, well, and moved on. Which is, fair enough. D's an absolute legend from what I hear, so yeah, I'm sure it was an honest mistake. He should have been credited, though. Anyway. There was a scene removed.
Yeah, that doesn't feel good that he wasn't credited. Yeah, no. Hopefully that's just a genuine oversight.
Yeah, I would hope so. That would be my feelings. A scene of Tonrock pushing Korra in her wheelchair into the Southern Water Tribe Royal Palace from early in the episode was actually cut from the final storyboard. But based on what that is, I don't feel like that scene was necessary. We see her arriving in the Southern Water Tribe in the wheelchair. Seeing her being pushed into the palace with her dad and having a brief conversation with him probably doesn't immediately strike me as a scene that we've missed. I can't even imagine what dialogue they would have exchanged that would have added anything to what was already happening in the episode. So, yeah, probably a good reason that was cut. Yeah. So the spirits that Korra meets during her meditation in the Tree of Time were voiced by child actors. After having cast similarly young actors for some of the spirits in Beginnings Part 1 from the previous... no, not previous, 2 seasons ago, the creators were inspired to do it again with the spirits that Korra meets. In the episode's commentary, Michael Dante DiMartino mentioned how the spirits having more childlike qualities actually helped support the moment where Korra carefully explained to the spirits the physical and mental trauma that she had gone through. That does work. I think she has to lay it out very carefully because they have a certain innocence to them, so it does definitely work.
Yeah, agreed.
The instances where Korra's apparition blurs in and out of focus and moves around is a visual callback to how the dark spirit that Korra fought in Rebel Spirit deformed while it moved. And that covers all of it. Unless we want to do cars exist for the Fiat Rava, for just the existence of the Fiat Rava. And what we called the Korra? It was like a... Oh, man, I named a Nissan Korra.
Yeah, you named it. Nissan Korra, that was it, which I thought was very good. That was one of those things where I tried to button it, but I was like, nothing, Renault Korra, like nothing was as good as Nissan Korra.
Yeah, Nissan Korra.
Which is probably because it's also your porn star name. So,
I stand by that any of those porn star name games are like terrible. I don't think they're. I'm the curmudgeon that doesn't find those interesting. It's the first street that you lived on and the name of your pet dog. I mean, that is just like pick random words, I guess. Like your first pet's first name and the street you lived on. Cool.
So what is yours then?
If it's those rules, it'd be Ben Hawthorne.
Yeah, it's not a great porn star name, is it?
No, this doesn't work. They're never entertaining.
Yeah.
What would yours have been? Do you remember? I suppose you're not really a pet family. So do you have a? Did you
No,
have
it's
a goldfish
mine's
or
not
something?
bad. Mine's not bad. It's Chips Gloucester.
All right, yeah, Chips Gloucester's a great porn star name. To be fair.
yeah. And also feels very me as a porn star name.
Yes, it's not just our porn star name, that is your porn star name. Alright, fair enough. Maybe there is some entertainment to be gotten out of this. Anyway, it's time to move on to everyone's favourite segment, and we got a quick one this week. It's feedback from last series.
Give me some feedback from last series. Give me the feedback.
Hi everyone, and welcome to feedback from last series. This is a quick one this week. It comes from Binks98, who has a little Sanji avatar on their profile, which I appreciate. Who doesn't love Sanji? Blackleg Sanji. And this is actually a post that appeared recently on an old episode of this show, on our episode for Sozin's Comet. So I like the idea of Binks working their way through, and in like a year's time hearing this. But they say, binge the whole series of you two over the past month or so. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for all the work you do. And then they said, watching as an adult, I wish they'd added just a tiny nugget of foreshadowing with the lion turtle earlier in the season. But as a kid, I never even cared or thought about it. Now, this made me think. And the reason I included this, and thank you very much for the comment, Binks. It's BH. It's a sound that my tongue doesn't want to make. Vinks. I don't know, whatever. I'll just say Binks. I'm going to ignore the H. That's what I'm going to do. Thank you for the comment. It's a really interesting point, this, because I've wondered several times as we've done this podcast, it's a kid's show. How much leeway do you give it for just going like, that's something a kid won't care about? Or is it the thing of the kid might not know that's the problem, but maybe they don't connect to the moment and they don't know why? Does that make sense? Like maybe a kid watching that first season of Avatar, the magic lion turtle shows up and gives Aang the power to go fight the Fire Lord. And because there was no foreshadowing, we know that moment hits a bit randomly because there's an element of it feeling like a Deus Ex Machina. Because we studied screenwriting, and there's a certain amount of like training that's gone into our understanding of how storytelling actually works mechanically. But do you think for a child who doesn't have that training, they just sort of don't care for the moment, but don't really know why? Do you think? Or it feels anticlimactic and they don't know why? Or do you think they just literally don't care?
I don't know. I think some might. We spotted things in Power Rangers. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know why, because obviously, like, Google didn't exist in the same way, but I definitely caught, like, why is the Pink Ranger wearing a dress and the yellow one isn't? And, why... I certainly remember feeling how formulaic those episodes were. Not a criticism, by the way. It's a kids' show and I loved it. So, that's fine. But it was... And, when they... that element of, well, she's always gonna increase the size of the monster, and they're always gonna use the Megazord, stuff like that. So I think we picked up on stuff. I'm sure there was shit with Pokemon that you picked up on. You know what I mean? It was comparable.
Yeah, and I think even in watching Dragon Ball, which I loved, there was still story elements that I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And even as a kid, I would sometimes wonder if it was a translation thing, because I became aware very quickly, and that it's a translation of a Japanese show, and that always, like, even once you realize that, like, you start spotting all sorts of weirdness. Like, as a kid, I was always confused in Pokemon when they had jelly donuts that were triangular, and I couldn't figure out why they were triangular. And it turns out it's just because they weren't jelly donuts. Very clearly, they're a Japanese. It's a sushi dish. I think it's like rice in a triangular shape with a bit of seaweed, and I think there's fish inside. I've never had them. Nadia has had them. But yeah, they were definitely not jelly donuts, as the dialogue would lead me to believe. So yeah, I think there's like. Yeah, I think when you're a kid, you do sometimes notice that something doesn't work, or you know you don't like it, but you don't know why. Although I'm not sure. I think the lion turtle is a pretty specific one, and I don't know if many kids would care about the lion turtle feeling a bit out of nowhere, if I'm being honest.
No, I don't think they would with the lion turtle. No, that's fair.
Because I think that one's a bit subtler and a bit more nuanced as a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But thanks for the feedback.
That's sort of the way. Okay. That's the way you played as a kid, isn't it? It's like someone was. Yeah. You'd be like, you'd need something, and be like, oh, this person appears with a magic power to give you it. Yeah. Me more so probably than you, but I feel like we've both written a couple of scripts like that in the past as well.
For some reason, that stuff always reminds me now. There was a South Park game where you were playing as superheroes, and in the sorry, I just knocked the mic that Chris can hear, so you listeners won't have heard that, but that probably will have been very loud for Chris.
No, it's fine. I think there's definitely some settings on your headset where it blocks out loud noises, because I didn't hear that at all.
Great. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a bloom noise I can hear in my ears, but I don't know if they're out loud. I don't think it is, because I think Nadia's texted me. Anyway, there's a South Park game where at the end you're fighting Cartman, but it's a fictional fight, obviously, because it's kids play fighting. And Cartman is like literally cheating. He's like, I get to go again because I'm a level 6 mage and have this power. And like he's like breaking the game to cheat to beat you. So yeah, can you hear the dinging at all?
I can't, no.
Okay, I'm assuming that's just in my ears then, and not out loud for the listeners to hear also. But yeah, thank you for Binks98 for the comment. We appreciate the feedback, and if you would like to leave some feedback for us to get back to, we obviously don't have another season beyond Korra, but what we said we're going to do is we're going to all the feedback from this series, we're just going to do a special bonus feedback episode once we finished Korra. Like, we'll wait, like, I don't know, we'll do another season of Rewind Reviews, and then we'll do like a bonus Korra feedback episode that's just the season 4 feedback. Because we record these for the reason we do the feedback from last series is we don't get a chance to react to stuff people say, because often we're very out of sync, because we record these quite far in advance, like 10 to 15 weeks in advance sometimes. So it means that we don't always have that ability to sort of respond to the feedback we're getting. So each season we come back to feedback from the previous season, and in this case we came back to feedback from Sozin Comet Part 2. So that's a couple of years ago, but it was an interesting comment, and I wanted to touch on that idea. But yeah, if you'd like to do that, you can do so by heading over to youtube.com/nothingbutstatic UK and finding the episode in question and leaving a comment under it. You can also email us, mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk. You can also comment on the episode as it is posted on our Patreon, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. Patreon is also, if you sign up, where you'd get access to our Discord channel, where you can also leave feedback. The Patreon also gives you access to episodes of this 1 week early, so if you're already eager to hear our discussion of next week's episode of The Coronation, then you can head over to Patreon right now, and for as little as $1 a month, you can join up and hear the episodes a week early. Also, episodes of Rewind Review go up a week early. I would promise the bonus content, but unfortunately that's temporarily stopped, and we need to do some catch up on that. We were doing a podcast called Nothing But Lyrics, and we need to get back on that. We've let that slide, but we'll figure that out. That's, I think, everything. Oh, no, of course, very quickly, Instagram.com/Raphodraws, Raphodraws. Rapho very kindly allowed us to use their artwork for the sort of cover art for this podcast. So if you listen to this on Spotify, you can see that beautiful picture of Appa at sunset. That's where it comes from. And Rapho has all sorts of great art that you can get. Particularly if you go to launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws, you can get links to their they've got a Redbubble account, I think, where you can buy merch, phone cases, t-shirts, mouse mats with various pieces of art Rapho has done. Support artists, support Rapho, and also, there's some good stuff in there, some really good stuff in there. Well worth taking a look. I think
some brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think I've covered everything. Do you think? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think if I missed something major, but I don't think I have. So I'm going to call that a victory.
Feels like all the stuff, doesn't it?
Does feel like all the stuff. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We are very, very appreciative of you taking the time. If there is, we already did feedback. That's it. Let's come back in a week. We're going to talk about more Korra stuff. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
That's been everything for this week on Korra. Oh god, I've completely blown this. That's been everything for Analysing Avatar. Come out next week when we're going to sit down and discuss the coronation. I got there in the end.
That was a flawless ending. I enjoyed it.
I nailed it.
Bye.